Alright guys, so in this video, right, I'm gonna go over the top 10 units that you should try to get in All-Star Tower Defense X, right? And I'll obviously explain who's good and who's bad and why they're in that order. Some might be a little controversial, some might not. Some are very, some units are pretty, you know, ahead of its time, some would say. But I am going to tell you guys in order which is going to be the best. So I'm going to catch you guys once I'm in this infinite mode so I can show you guys these units' stats. Alright, so to start off the list, I'm going to go with honorable mention. And the honorable mention, in my opinion, would have to be Crocodile. But the only reason why he's really a honorable mention though is how rare he is to get, because he's a 1% drop from the new summer event. And his upgrades are very similar to a Kainu, but without an ability and a damage over time like status effect. So he's just like an average like DPS unit. Like he's not really anything crazy. I mean he's good. He's a good multi-hit unit. Don't get me wrong. He's good for like shield breaking, but that's why I got like Aaron, because he's just full AoE as a shield breaker. But now I'm gonna actually go into the real list. Alright, so for the first unit would have to be Broly at number 10, because look, his damage doesn't look good, right? But the best thing about him is how cheap he is to place, because that means you could literally place him down at wave 2, and most people won't place anything down by wave 2 or 3. So he's just like a good starter unit, and his SPA is very, very quick as well. And his range isn't that bad. However, he does stay only a circle AoE, and it's not even, it's like an okay size. And here's the passive that makes him pretty good in my opinion, where he gains like a certain amount of damage every wave, and the cap is 9,651. So maxed out without that buff, he does 16.4k, but with it fully stacked, Broly can do up to 26,000 damage with almost 5.5 thousand DPS, which makes him very strong for long wave game modes such as Infinite or anything that's above wave 20. And so now I'm going to go into the second unit that I have. And what I'm going to put at number 9 has to be Ichigo Vastolorde, which some people might say is kind of interesting because he hit. But the thing is, the reason why I would rank him as a top 10 unit is look how cheap his upgrades are. He has a decent SPA, he has so much range, and on top of that he has a pretty good line AoE. And to even stack more on top of that, he's a 4 placement unit, which can mean his full DPS is like over what, 16,000 almost, which I mean getting all 4 of them is a little expensive, but that's all. Who cares, bro? If you're doing like infinite or anything, you can definitely do that, especially if it's a red element that needs that like buffs. Then Ichigo is like a really good pick. Alright, for number 8 though, this might sound a little controversial, kind of. In my opinion, it has to be Sukuna. Sukuna has this thing where when he bleeds, it also deals 25% of his damage over 3 ticks, and then bleeding enemies take 5% damage, which can also make him more of a support kind of unit until he gets to this upgrade here, which swaps out bleed for burn. So when you do that, right, his burn then does 40% of his damage over 4 ticks, and it's stackable. So any other burn unit would stack for even more damage, which could make Sukuna very good and strong at certain times. And another plus is how much range he has, and a pretty good sized circle AoE as well. The only downside he really has is that he's a 3 placement unit, but that means if you get All-Star, you're benefiting from it. So now, we got a little bit of a tricky one, right? We got Zeke at number 7. In my opinion, he might be a little higher, depending on the traits you got for him. But here's the thing. For most people, they don't know how Zeke really works. If you see this gray range, he cannot attack in this range. And a lot of people put him in a bad placement such as this, but this is for just showcasing. I don't really care about how, you know. And so the thing is with him, he's actually very expensive, but the thing is, the downside he has is the very, very long SPA that he has, but his benefits is crazy damage at 42,000 in a really good cone AoE and very good range. If you ever see Zeke in the banner, you better summon for him because he's good for a lot of stuff. He's good for pretty much everything in the game he's good at, even infinite mode because of the damage. But we gotta go and showcase this fast because, yeah, this ain't gonna last. So for the 6th unit on the list has to be Okiora. Okiora, in my opinion, has to be the best hill unit, or not. I wouldn't say best hill unit. It's a little debatable, but he is very strong when it comes to his ability. His ability does this: transforms into his new form, and then his stats increase based on the damage dealt before activation. So if you get over 1,000,000 damage, he gets buffed, which before we die, look at those stats. You pop Murcielago, and his damage goes up, his SPA or whatever, but then his attack turns into a really big circle AoE. I know we died, don't worry. But by far, Okiora is probably the best or even second best 5-star you can find in banner X and Y, and I would summon for him and Zeke almost instantly anytime you see him. But I'm gonna go into a new match and I'm gonna go and show you the good characters, the characters that are pretty hard to get. Alright guys, so now that I got my money right, the number 5 unit has to be Esdeath, right? Esdeath is no doubt the best freeze and time stop unit in the entire game, with a good range and decent damage, making her good in a lot of ways. And one downside that she has is in her upgrades, she then loses the ability to freeze. However, she gains the ability here, which is in short terms a time stop, and her damage isn't even that bad. Definitely better than Gojo's. Gojo's is awful. Like, it's, oh my god, his damage is like barely even 10k. Yeah, like, what's it called? No doubt, she's like probably obviously the second best trial unit, because she's by far the best support, and you can place her pretty early as well by like wave 3, and she does good damage right away too. And she is a 4 placement on top of that too, so I would recommend getting her, especially if you want to play, and if you don't have good trades like All-Star and a bunch of units, then you can at least be the person who does a bunch of support. But into the next thing that I'm going to choose though has to be Akainu. Akainu is the Trial 2 unit with same way of obtaining Esdeath as a 1% drop from Trial, or buying it with 250 tokens for the scroll and opening it and getting the unit. This has All-Star, so his damage is nowhere near the same, but you'll get the gist of what I'm trying to say. That when you max him out, he does, without All-Star, I think he does around 20 something thousand, which is very good, especially with the burn that he has. And the his range is pretty good, with a very quick SPA on top of that and a good line AoE, so it makes it so his burn's always gonna be pretty good, especially in that summer map. But he does have an ability, which the ability would kind of be better if you have more than one Akainu, but I believe All-Star does buff how much damage it does as well. But what this ability does is randomly place 2 magma pools in any path within Akainu's range, up to 6 pools per magma marine or Akainu. Any enemy that walks into these magma pools take immense damage along being inflicted with burn. And since it's a 5-second cooldown, you'll most likely always have one of these down. So by far, it's a pretty good unit, and I mean, yeah, All-Star is technically his best trait, but just getting Akainu alone is really good, because in the beginning of his upgrades, he's cheap. He's like 1.2k without All-Star, You can place him down like pretty quick. He's a good shield breaker as well. He hits like 5 times. So I would easily recommend getting both Esdeath and Akainu from Dryals because they're very good. I mean, they're unbound units, so like kind of like what you expect. But the next unit, on the other hand, is better and isn't an unbound unit. In my opinion, it's gotta be Killua. Killua's 5-star is on placement looks pretty bad. 365 damage, single target 1 second. But once you move past those upgrades, where he becomes 4 seconds with this, alright, with a good circle AoE, not that bad, right? Now, he'll get this upgrade where he becomes full AoE and inflicts a shock status effect, which deals 10% of the unit's damage over 4 ticks. Each tick stuns the enemies for half a second, which, I mean, you can barely notice the stun time, but hey, stun is a stun. So I would say Killua is probably the top 5 unit in the entire game. He's good for literally everything. He is the only unit in this game that is a heal and is also a full AoE unit. The last full AoE unit we had was on release, and that's Whitebeard, and I don't even think he's hybrid. So Killua being the next hybrid kind of full AoE unit, pretty good, but not as good as these other 2 units that even I don't have. So for our first, has to be Chrollo. Chrollo is a line AoE unit that does poison status effect, does good damage, and a good SPA. And on top of that, having a nuke ability that is a one-time use. Definitely a unit you have to be lucky for, but definitely worth it if you end up summoning him. And then, with no one surprised ever, #1 unit has to be Kokoshibo. Due to him having the highest DPS in the entire game, he has a long range and a massive cone AoE on top of that. Definitely making him worth trying to get and will make you a pro in All-Star Tower Defense X. So, that is the list for Update 2 and the top 10 units for Update 2 in All-Star Tower Defense X that will make you a pro when you get these units. If you did enjoy or found this helpful of a guide that I just told you about the units that you should summon for and try to get, how about you leave a like and subscribe? But I'm not gonna waste any guys' time, and I will see you guys in the next one.